living in the moment, and the moment is the future.
With Pam and John. This is SPEDTalk.
Welcome to SPEDTalk with Pam,
and John,
also known as The Calm.
before the storm.
Our purpose is to elevate the conversation and amplify special education resources.
And our why is all about the kids. You know, Pam, there are so many organizations and people around Texas who are just making it happen for kids with disabilities.
So let's make this a platform to celebrate their efforts, because special education is about making the impossible possible. Hi, John.
Well, hello, Pam.
It's like we're back with another episode of SPEDTalk.
Here we go.
Okay, so who do we have with us today, John?
Well, Pam, I am so excited. We've got Amy. No, I'm just kidding. Amy's always with us. Come on, guys. Stay with me.
Time.
We have Lorraine Klim. Lorraine is a dear friend and colleague, and she agreed to sit around the table with us today and talk about her work with autism. She has a lot of experience in autism, has worked in Houston ISD, developing services and programs for students with autism in that really big school district, right? The big one in Texas. And also then now as a liaison, she's had really the opportunity to have real impact, I think, on a smaller scale with smaller rural schools and a grant that she was able to obtain and work she's done. So we're excited to have Lorraine Klim from ESC Region 4 with us today.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Good, Lorraine, I'm glad you're here. Would you like to tell the audience about the grant and the work that you're doing?
Sure. A year ago, TEA came up with an Autism Grant opportunity for the state of Texas. And the parameters that it had to be a program for kids with autism, kinder to third grade only. And they were looking for innovation, and they were looking for things that could be sustained and also scaled across the state to find ways to do better programming for kids with autism. So the Greater Gulf Coast Co-op had reached out to one of the specialists at Region 4 who handles autism, and before all this grant even happened, and asked for some help in developing programs, because at that time they were sending all their kids with autism out to contract placement or other districts because they didn't have any services and programs, and they asked for help to develop that and bring their kids home. So Kathy and I got together, the other Region 4 specialist, and we had worked together in the past. We had both been teachers of kids with autism in Spring Branch School District, so we knew each other very well. And then we were both facilitators on the autism behavior team in Spring Branch after that. So we've had a lot of good history together. And she and I found out about this grant opportunity, and it was like it was laid at our feet. It was the perfect answer to their needs. And we got together with them and said, hey, do you want to do this? And they said, yes. And so we got together with their staff and we put together this grant application, very complex process. And we were awarded one of the 10 grants in Texas.
That is so amazing. You know, Lorraine, I swear, like reflecting back on like a year or so back now, it seems like you were still semi new to the role of special ed liaison.
Yes.
And you had come from Houston ISD, where you had worked in this area.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
About the HISD?
Yeah, about all that experience you have.
I, like I said, I came from Spring Branch as a teacher and a facilitator, and I was hired in HISD to be the team lead for the autism team, which is a very small team at that time of 3 people. And I was hired, and the assistant superintendent said, I want you to change the face of autism in Houston Independent School District. And I said, okay, that's not hard. But anyway, so over the course of time in that first year, I was able to hire additional staff, and then even more as years went by. And we started spending a year just looking at what the needs were and realizing that we were operating on a fireman's mentality of 911, come help, we have a problem.
Yeah.
And nothing was being done to prevent those problems.
One crisis to the next.
From one to the next, always. And when you've got a kid with autism that's causing problems on a campus, whether it be behavior, instruction, whatever the case is, people want you to come now.
Yeah,
And
they need
so-
you to, because they're usually beyond what they know to do.
Yes, because it takes a very specific set of skills and
Yeah.
knowledge. And so we we looked at what we were doing and we asked, how can we do this different? And our assistant superintendent at the time was very data driven. So we started looking at teacher retention because that was something we could put numbers to. And we said, how can we change teacher retention with our teachers of autism? And at that time, we probably had about 81 campuses.
So was there a high attrition rate? Was there a lot of teachers leaving?
53% a
Wow.
year
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
at the beginning.
Wow.
Because they were being put in there like so many are without all of the proper training to know what to do that first day when the kids walk through the door.
Yeah.
And what's so beautiful about it is that we know what to do.
Right.
We do. It's not rocket science, but it is a science. There is a culture of autism, and understanding how to support that culture and meet those needs is very specific.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been able to do, what we did in HISD, and that we've been able to do through the grant.
So with the grant, you said it had to be innovative. So what are the elements that you would consider innovative that you all are doing in the Gulf Coast?
Well, Kathy and I are very strong believers of structured teaching.
Okay.
It is a structured teaching is a model out of North Carolina, out of TEACCH.
Okay.
And there's actually 27 evidence-based practices for autism, and many of those are within the TEACCH program. We also are strong components of ABA strategies that can be intertwined into that TEACCH model. So it was a matter of looking at creating something that didn't exist in a very small and very rural districts that didn't have the resources and the staff to create something from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
So it was innovative in that it was innovative for those districts and the situation that they were in.
Yeah, I mean, almost just to lead from a presumption that it could be done at that scale. That, hey, just because we are small and rural doesn't mean we have to stay in a space without capital, right? Human capital that can do this work. And so through that grant, it sounds like that's what you're trying to do, is build the capacity in those individuals within those systems.
Yes, and it helps that they gave us a lot of money.
That always helps.
Money does help.
So we could bring in some outside consultants to do specific training.
Yeah.
We hired some people that there are specific trainers of TEACCH, the TEACCH model, and we had them come in, and we had BCBA come in to do ABA training. We've had social skills training done from an outside consultant. But the key component has been that we were able to allot our own time to be in those districts every single week and coach.
And
that's what's been key.
Wow.
Talk about that a little bit, because I know that's the big thing now, is really moving from this mindset of professional development to professional learning, embedded supports, and coaching is really a way to kind of move a system by developing the people within it. And so you said we were able to, or we were unable to do that. Tell me more about that.
Well, we made it part of the grant was for them to have us as the coaching team. That was written into the grant that we would provide the coaching. And we were able to schedule it out where we'd go to, because of the location and the logistics, the very farthest district from Region 4 is actually 72 miles. Mm-hmm. So that's a large round trip in one day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we decided that letting the teachers know that we were going to be back every week to check on what we had worked with them to implement and what we had modeled for them the week before. We're going to come back next week. We're going to see how things are going. And one of the key things is that we built relationships with the staff, not just the teachers, but the paraprofessionals, the administrators, the OT, the speech people, the principal superintendent.
Sure.
Because at that level in the small rural schools, you're talking to the superintendent.
Exactly.
Sometimes the superintendent is also the principal.
Sometimes, yes,
right.
in one particular
and the bus
district
driver
it
mowing the
is,
lawn.
and mowing the lawn.
Right. I mean,
Yeah. So as we built those relationships, the teachers told us, because we did a mid-year and an end-of-year check-in with them to get their feedback on what they think worked so well. And they said that they knew the accountability factor that we were coming back the next week is what really helped them to grow their game.
Right.
Is they knew we were going to come back and we were going to be talking about how did this go? Did it not work? Okay, let's see what we can go find to try next.
Yeah,
Because a lot
personal
of times-
accountability in a way, because they knew that it was being attended to.
Yes.
You know, it's really neat in a way because, like you described, two different dichotomies, I think, there. One was the idea that relationship really matters, developing those relationships across all members of the staff. You're not just coming into a special ed classroom to work with these people for these kids. This is something that really needs to be addressed in a culture of a campus, in an environment that supports students with certain needs. And that is, I think, crucial. And I think that's so neat that you guys have had the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and we actually started the year last year by meeting with the whole campus staff.
Yeah.
And this is an elementary school with 1,200 children only up to third grade. It's a very large campus.
Wow.
It is large.
And so we had a little introductory meeting with the whole staff, and we told them, this is who we are. This is what we're doing. This is what this grant's about. And you will see us here every single week.
Wow.
And know that if you have a student that you need help with and you're not one of the teachers we're coming out to serve, you are welcome to stop us in the hall and say, hey, I got a question. We're here for the whole campus.
How was that
All kids.
received at first? At first, was it like, oh, thank you? Or was it like,
Well, I think at first it was like, okay, these ladies are coming from, 60 miles away. And are they really going to be here every week?
Right.
And are they really going to be invested in this process? Yeah. And the principal was probably one of the doubters at first because, they're out there all by themselves in the middle of cotton fields.
Yeah.
Literally. And she said, I can't believe how wonderful this has actually worked. That you have been here and you've done what you said you were going to do, and we can see the results in the children.
I was going to ask you. That's where I was thinking you kind of led into
Right.
my question. So what type of results are you seeing for the students?
Well, there's one particular student I'm thinking of who was at a contracted facility and had been at the school when he was younger and reached a point where they could not support him anymore. And he was brought back to the school, and we had a wonderful teacher that was hired for this structured learning classroom, and she really has a lot of good knowledge. And she just, when it works, it's magic.
Mm-hmm.
And he became a very good student, doing what was expected of him, and became more verbal. That's one of the huge things, is that you see these kids become more verbal.
Yeah.
And if not verbal, communication systems put in place
Absolutely.
to help them have a voice.
Yeah.
And in another one of the districts, a little girl who literally sat next to the para all day, and it was a constant battle. And she just was having the most difficult time knowing how to be in a classroom.
Yeah.
And this is a PPCD classroom. This is a preschooler.
Just little itty bitties.
And now she can sit there and go through work systems all by herself without anybody sitting next to her.
Self-directed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think you're touching on the TEACCH, the structured classroom setting, and I want you to talk a little bit more about that so our listeners can better understand that. But I have a question. Do you feel like the time that you spent building those relationships like we were talking about also led to building capacity in the administrators to really oversee quality control? Because you touched on the second thing I was going to say earlier was implementation fidelity. You're going out to build relationships and support, but really to oversee the work.
Yes.
And so do you feel like you being out working at all levels then has empowered, we talk about sustainability, has empowered those administrators to potentially step into that space when you're not there in the future?
Absolutely, because part of our coaching included sending coaching logs every single week with our observations, goals we had set for the teachers, and what goals had been met and what still needed to be worked on, and suggestions and things for them to consider for the next week.
Mm-hmm.
And these were always sent to the administration. So, and that was something that was voiced to us, is how much they appreciated being able to see in writing every week what we were doing. And then we also had implementation fidelity checklists that were filled out at certain times during the year, and those were shared. But we also, every one of our visits was with one of the staff from the Greater Gulf Coast Co-op. they have 2 coordinators, one for like the schools on one end of the Gulf and one on the other. And those ladies were with us because that was part of the preparation for the sustainability, was to make sure that somebody that was going to still be there after the grant was walking in those shoes with us.
Yes.
And being part of that process. And then, like I said, having meetings with the administrators at the end of the year and the different times of the year. And we've had meetings already to plan for next year because we're rolling out some new programs for next year.
Yeah, that's
So
exciting.
what have been the teachers' response?
They have absolutely loved it. They, like I said, at first, I think they felt like a lot of teachers do when you have somebody in your room all the time. It's kind of, it feels a little uncomfortable because you think somebody's coming in there to check on you and see if you're doing your job and make sure you're doing it right. And it was a matter of building the relationships and working with them on building their capacity. And they start to see the results that what they're hearing is actually working. And so it's growing their own capacity. And they have, you can tell when you've moved to that point where they're feeling confident because in the world of autism, you don't set something up and it stays that way for the whole year.
Right.
It's a constant pulling out of the tool belt. What's the next strategy? What is the next thing? And when you go into the classroom and we talk about setting up the environment, because that's the very first thing we do in structured teaching is you set the environment. So we set up the classroom and then we come back and go, well, this isn't working. Let's tweak this. And when you go for a few months and you come back and there's a lot of things different that the teacher has done all on her own because she now understands the why behind what you're doing. And she's realized how she needs to continue to double check what she has and maybe make changes on her own. So the confidence that you can see in them by them being able to change the things without the coaches there is a true testimony that they're feeling like they're getting somewhere.
Okay. So have you heard from the teachers? I guess I'm really asking, have you heard from parents?
Yes.
Through the teachers, I guess what.
Yes. So at the end of the year, the teacher sent out feedback forms to the parents. And they were the kind of feedbacks that said, my child told me he loved me and I cried for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
That's powerful.
and the parent component was part of it, but you go into a very small community and you say, okay, we're here because that was part of the grant. We had to plan some things for parent support and we were prepared to do parent trainings, parent meetings, and we sent out a survey after giving them the information about what we're doing there. We gave them all that information up front and we said, would you be willing to come to a meeting, whatever? And they said, well, most of them said, just rather have you send information home.
Mm-hmm.
So every month I put together a packet of different strategies and information, and sometimes relative to the time of year, like over Christmas breaks and things to help them understand how to get their child through the 2 weeks of being off school.
Yeah.
And so sending home parent resources every single month was what we have done.
Yeah, I
Parents.
love that. I think a lot of times we make assumptions in education that, it's a break, everyone's happy. And for maybe a child with autism or a family with a child with autism, that could be a very stressful time because that child's routine is mixed up and they don't have that daily, schedule in place. And sometimes the families aren't equipped to navigate that effectively.
And they're like, oh yes, the kids are off school. We can all sleep late. We can have 2 bowls of cereal for breakfast instead of bacon and eggs. And that doesn't work for our kids with autism. They need the structure, they need the routine, the consistency, and even things like, Uncle Fred and Aunt Mary are coming over for Thanksgiving. Well, they're not usually there. And that's an intrusion on that predictability when you have people coming into the house that aren't usually there. And those are the kind of things that you don't necessarily think about.
Right.
So helping parents understand all the things that are going to be different for your child during the holidays, people that are in the house, decorations that are in the house, different foods that you're eating, all can really rock their world.
Yeah.
Wow, I've never thought about that.
Yeah.
That is something to think about.
Right. A lot of empathy, really, when you think about families, and really we all, people with children, we all adapt to our kids because our kids are babies and they scream and holler, and then they get bigger and they adapt to us, but a lot of times with students with autism or certain disabilities, that those kids really never adapt to our schedule. And so for some of us that have the luxury of kind of taking our lives back as our kids get older, I think a lot of our families out there, we forget to remember that.
Yes.
That they don't get that part of themselves back, that they will continue to provide those supports and attend to that schedule that may not be their own. So that's a great insight.
So Lorraine, did you ever, did y'all have to do, or was it necessary, needed or wanted to do in-home trainings? Or
That was
question.
offered through the Autism Supplement. In-home and parent training has to be considered for every student and family with autism.
Right.
And they didn't have anybody that was interested in doing the in-home training. So I have had a lot of experience doing that, because when I was in HISD, I also was over in-home training
Yeah.
Okay.
and that staff.
Okay.
So I want to highlight an experience we got to share, Lorraine, and how, it was so exciting. I know this time we barely knew each other.
Right.
And I remember being so excited when you came to the group and said, we got one of the grants. Oh my gosh. And it was kind of like, oh my God, how'd she get a grant? Because I had people in the Waco area, different areas that were applying and didn't get them. And I thought, well, this lady knows something we don't know. Well, I've since learned that you know a lot of stuff that some of us don't know, especially about autism. So, but you and I got to collaborate across regions, and I was so honored and blessed when you got to come to Region 12 and visit myself and Cynthia Engel, our autism specialist, and Kayla Daniel, our transition guru. And we got to spend time at Killeen ISD, and the work that really I think the background, the context, the professionalism, the expertise that you brought to Region 12 has really empowered us in Region 12 to grow in this space. And Cynthia, she's got it, she rocks it. But some of us aren't as caught up to this as you are. And so, but then out in Killeen ISD, they have really, really, really benefited from that time. And so, would you want to share a little bit of that?
Sure.
Your perception of that?
Sure. I know it started with conference calls.
Yeah.
With the special ed director.
We had quite a few of those.
A few of those and their staff, and talking through my experiences and what I had done and what had worked and what we found didn't work and what did work. And they were in the process of reframing all of their services and supports for kids with autism.
Yeah.
And coming up with a new model and doing kind of what we're doing in the grant, but they had already started working on that and creating the frameworks that they did later shared with us.
Yeah.
And
they've done some awesome work.
Yes, wanted some input on training and thoughts around support. And so all those conversations led to a visit.
Yeah.
And I went to Killeen, and
how many didn't we hit 6 campuses?
Like
and
6 campuses in a day.
20 something classrooms or something like that. Or maybe it was 13 or 20. I can't remember now.
I know,
boy,
one building to the next.
I was exhausted at the end of that day, and I'm like type A, like I'm all over the place, and I was worn out.
Yes, and it was really so nice to go someplace. And first of all, they were so welcoming, and that was really nice.
Yeah.
And their coordinators, their program specialists went with us for each school. So we had somebody there walking through and talking to the staff, talking to kids, talking to administrators about their program and what works and what else they might need. And so it was really good. It was really good. And I have to say, it was a huge learning curve for me when we went to the schools that are there on the military base.
Yeah.
And I never had considered or known a lot about military schools, military-based schools, and started thinking about, oh my gosh, transition is one of the most difficult things with kids with autism, and military is nothing but transitioning.
And the mobility rates
and the mobilities. Oh my goodness. And yes, so that really was a different perspective that I was grateful to get from that visit, was that military piece.
Well, Killeen ISD is definitely doing some amazing things in the area of special education, special populations, interagency collaborations with service centers and things like that. But I know it was really exciting for us to get to bring you in and spend time together, with really the experts of Killeen ISD. And it really felt like after our time together that they they took something away from it, and they were able to apply some of the knowledge and the expertise you shared with them about, structured classrooms and TEACCH and these models that they're implementing. And so it was really powerful. And I think that was just a great example of how liaisons can come together. And, I may have an expertise in this area, and I may work in Region 12, or, Pam may be in 11, Amy may be in 9, you may be in 4. But, synergy, this idea that when we come together on a project and we're able to bring not just the content, like here, you could push this out in your region, you could push this out here, I'll give it to you. But to come together and share information and form those relationships across regions, I really think it connects Texas, and it's good for kids. And so I just felt like that was one thing. It was really kind of you to give of your time and come do that. But I just want to thank you for that. But it was really powerful. I feel like the outcome is really benefiting kids in Killeen ISD.
Yes, it was really great. And I think from the beginning, we did the conference calls, but I think you and I both, John, knew that we needed to walk the halls.
Yes.
We needed to be there and walk the halls. And I think that's another thing that liaisons have the luxury of doing, is we can walk the halls. We can go to another region and walk the halls. And that is huge, because you can sit in a room with people at a training or at a meeting all day long.
That's it.
But till you get in there and see it in practice,
Exactly.
it just takes on a whole new meaning.
So for year 2 of your grant,
Mm-hmm.
gotta move on, John.
Nice. Pam segueing, guys. Y'all know how
Segue.
she keeps us on.
So year 2 of your grant, so what are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to creating a program in the co-op for the kids that are not cognitively delayed. So the structured learning classrooms that we put in are for the kids that are on the lower cognition scale, maybe nonverbal, and require an alternate curriculum.
Okay.
So within the same campus, as there always are kids that are in the general ed setting or at general ed curriculum, but many times are spending their day in resource.
Okay.
And that was the case, is that they were spending a lot of time in resource and had the most amazing resource teachers there.
Yeah.
They really had been there for 30 years. One of them getting
Wow.
ready to retire. She and her pair has been there, for 30
Wow.
years, doing amazing work. And like I said, always, every person, that school, every one of those teachers was so welcoming to us to come in and observe kids in their classes all the time. It was so great. So this second year, we're creating another program for those kids. It's a home-based model, and it's using all of the components of structured teaching and all of the ABA strategies and many, many more of the 27 evidence-based practices. But it's creating a system that looks at each student individually and plans their day and their program and their support as on an individual basis.
Wow.
So if you got 5 kids, you basically got 5 different classrooms, because
Right.
each of those 5 kids has different schedules,
Right.
with the ultimate goal of being in general ed as much as possible.
Mm.
And if it means spending the first 6 months fully self-contained until the teacher figures out what supports need to be in place, and then trying them for even just starting at 15 minutes a day. And I was this teacher before I left Spring Branch. I was the teacher of this kind of classroom. I opened the second classroom in the district at this, it was called AIM. And so,
Is that similar to the work you did in HISD as well?
yes, at
Kind of-
HISD, we did the same thing.
Yes.
Created what's called TREC program.
Okay.
And because the kids in HISD were all put into a lot of the same classrooms. So you had the kids on the general curriculum and the alternate in the same class, which is a nightmare for teachers.
Oh my gosh.
So we created this new program, and this was a 5-year plan. And we went through 5 years of developing this program that became very successful. And so that's what we're doing next year. And it includes, check in and check out, daily social skills instructions, because a lot of times the social skills is what keeps kids from being able to sit in that classroom. So we're really excited because the life skills teacher on the campus at Needville, she wanted so badly to be this teacher. And so she and I have been working already on next year.
That's exciting.
Oh my gosh.
When you get the
so exciting.
buy-in,
Oh my
and then
gosh.
because it becomes their work. This isn't your work. This is their work.
Yes.
Right,
And she said, I want to go see an example. So she was asking for an example of one of these classes already, an exemplar. So we were able to take her to HISD,
Oh, wow.
to one of the classes that we had created 3 or 4 years ago with this most phenomenal teacher there. And she was able to go see it in action, and she
Yes.
was amazed
Oh, wow.
and took pictures. And we got to see this class is like 13 kids from kindergarten through 5th grade,
Wow.
in and out all day, meeting the needs of every one of them. And just an exemplar. And the principal of that campus and the teacher are just so supportive of this program. And it was so great because we went there twice, actually.
Yeah.
We went once, and then we went back a second time. And I have then connected these 2 teachers, and they're both very young teachers, young, energetic, wonderful teachers. So one is serving as kind of a mentor to the other. And so she has direct communication. She's sharing documents with her.
Wow.
She's sharing all of her things. And, because she and I did this together when I was in
Yes.
HISD, and she's just a wonderful person. And so
Awesome.
we were able to have the exemplar for her.
Yeah, that's the power of connection, right?
Yep.
Being able to connect people to
Yep.
to needs, and to other people.
Yes. And when I reached out to the school and said, can we come? Absolutely. And they were like, we're so glad to see you. I haven't been there in a while.
That's
So it's like
validating.
seeing old friends. And so that was great. So,
In a way, it's honoring her work as well. It's wanting to showcase that person and her efforts and all that she's accomplished. So
oh, yeah.
that's a good feeling.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think we need to celebrate those kind of
Yes.
opportunities and successes.
Yeah. There are a lot of rock stars in HISD in this program,
Yeah.
doing this program.
So lately, what we've been asking, we're going to kind of wrap this up.
Mhm.
We know you have to leave. And we've been asking if you had one word for special education, or one word you could share with a new special ed teacher who's working with, in your case, working with students with autism, what would be that one word be?
Well, it's not exactly one word, but we could put hyphens between it. And I
Here
would
we go,
say-
people making up the rules.
I'm always throwing extra words in there.
Go ahead,
I think hang in there.
hang in there. Okay.
It's gonna get better.
It's going
Hang in there. You're gonna learn. They're gonna learn, and it's gonna get better. Hang in there.
Can I say a word?
No, John, I didn't ask you.
Well, my word, I'm going to say it anyway. My word is persevere.
There you
Persevere.
go. There you go. That's a much more professional way of
No.
saying
Well,
hang in there.
No, I think on some days it is hang in there.
Make it to the
I
day.
think it is hang in there.
Yeah.
Well, it was so awesome to have you with us today, Lorraine, and I appreciate you sharing of your experiences and your expertise, and I hope to have you back. I hope we can get back together and talk about the successes in year 2 of the grant and just share more with our audience about ways to improve outcomes for students with disabilities, especially our kids with autism.
Thank you. Thank you. It's definitely my passion, and I'm so honored that as a liaison, I'm still able to do some of this work.
Right.
And working also with small and rural schools brings all of it together. And I just getting up there in age, but I still love coming to work every day.
We don't talk about age.
Some of us don't. No, I'm sorry. I always go there. Like I'm a spring chicken. Come on, guys. Well, listen, this one's been fun, guys.
It's been fun. So thank you, Lorraine. And that's it for SPEDTalk.
We'll see you next time. To continue to elevate the conversation, hit us up on Twitter at SPEDTalk 2020, where you can find links to all of our episodes and each of the resources that we discussed today.
John, also links to the resources will be available at our podcast site.
And if you found these resources helpful, be sure to share them with a friend, because information should always flow through us, not to us.
That will do it for this episode of SPEDTalk.
And remember, courage creates culture and kindness keeps us connected.
Until the next time, I'm Pam,
And I've been John.
and this is
SPEDTalk.
Elevate the concept.
Living in the moment, and the moment is the future.
Vision with